All right, welcome back. We're here in Chapter 11, and we're going to be talking about testing claims about means this time. About the population mean. Again, we do have our learning targets here. Again, we're going to look at our three conditions that we're going to look at. A little twist on this one this time. We're going to calculate the standardized test statistic and p-value. We're going to be looking at t-scores a little bit. We're going to change that just a little bit. We're going to look at significance tests about that, and then making a confidence interval. So we're kind of putting a lot of things together that we've done over the last few chapters. Short chapter, only 2 sections, but we'll split that up 2 days for section 1 and 3 days for section 2. All right, so again, how to make a conclusion. Okay, well we got to make sure we test our conditions. It's got to be random again, or 10% condition that we have. Now the other part is that our instead of our large counts, we're going to be looking at a normal large sample kind of idea that, again, we want the sample size to be bigger than 30. Then again, we do want to make sure that I want to assess the normality of that. We'll kind of look at that. I want to make sure that the graph doesn't show any strong skewness or outliers. That's kind of the key that we're going to look at. So we're going to have to sketch those in there. So again, it's not enough just to make the on your calculator. You got to sketch it on your paper when we're doing free response, and comment about it that you don't see skewness or outliers when you do that. So make sure that you do that. That's just some easy money to get you on those free response. Otherwise, you'll get docked. So let's look at this again. We're looking at our AAA 15 to AAA batteries. We have the lifetime in hours. We did a simple random sample here. We had 15 of them. So let's check those conditions. Let's make sure we understand how to do that. This seems to be something we've done quite a bit. Random, it did say a simple random sample of those, so make sure we quote that. The 10%, I'm guessing 15 is way less than 10% of the company's batteries that they make. And if you make a dot plot here, you kind of take a look and you see there really doesn't see any skewness or outliers. So that means that we can go with that test of normality that we have. Now remember, as we've done this for different standardized test statistics, z-scores more particularly in the past, we took that statistic minus the parameter and then divided by the standard deviation of that statistic. Okay, so in this ideal world, this is what we'd be doing. We're testing the population mean. And so what we would do is take our sample mean minus that population mean divided by the standard deviation. Well, yeah, one issue that we have with that, of course, is that the population standard deviation is almost always unknown. So we're going to use the sample standard deviation in its place. Now the resulting standardized test statistic has the standard error of the mean in the denominator, so we're going to call that t. That's the difference there. So because of what we use there, we're going to say that's the t statistic. That's the one that we're going to look at. Okay. All right. Now when we perform inference about a population mean and using a t distribution, the appropriate degrees of freedom is just your sample size minus 1, n minus 1. And a t distribution, you might say, well, what is that? Well, it's described by a symmetric, single-peaked, bell-shaped density curve. Looks like a normal curve. It sort of does. Any t distribution is completely specified by its degrees of freedom. Now, when performing inference about a population mean based on a random sample size of n, when the population standard deviation is unknown, we're going to use the t distribution with the degrees of freedom that's 1 less than your sample size is what we're going to do. Okay. All right. So again, as you kind of look here, a little note here, t distributions have more area in the tails than in normal distributions. So that's kind of the difference there. Now, they look very similar to normal. They are symmetric. They are single-peaked and bell-shaped. Now they have, again, t distributions have more variability. Okay. Because the t distributions have more area in the tails is what happens there. So a little more variability than a normal distribution. So as the degrees of freedom increase, in other words, your sample size gets bigger, the t distributions get closer to that normal distribution. So once again, bigger sample size helps us out in a lot of different areas. Now, you can use table B, that's in our handy dandy packet. It's right after the table A, which is the z tables. We can use those to approximate the t distribution. We'll also talk a little bit about using your calculator, which sometimes is a little bit more precise. So in our battery example here that we have here, we're going with the null hypothesis that the mean is 30. The alternative is that we think that the mean is probably going to be greater than 30. And so we calculate our t statistic. Okay, we calculate that in there. Again, using the information that we had before. So we had 1.55 as our t value. And the degrees of freedom, because we had 15 in our sample size, well, 1 less is 14. So we can look at the table, and here's kind of the downfall of the table. We look at our degrees of freedom here. Okay, so we're looking at, 1.55. Well, it's in between here. It's in between 0.05 and 0.10. It's in between there. All right, so what we get there is we kind of get a range of values that we have. So again, that interval kind of shows that, what we do with the table. All right, so, and again, the table shows only probabilities for positive values of t. Now to find the negative value, we use the idea that it's symmetric. So we use those for that as well. Now again, the table includes probabilities. If you're looking at that, it goes from 1 to 30, but then skips off 40, 50, 60, 80, 100, 1,000. And so you're like, yeah, we're losing some precision here. And yeah, so yeah, if you're using the table, if the degrees of freedom you're looking for isn't on the table, use the next smaller one. Don't go up, go down is the kind of the rule of thumb as you're using that. So we'll talk a little bit about how to use the calculator here in just a second when we look at a problem. And then, of course, those Tech Corner videos are fantastic that we have here for you to take a look at. And again, come see me if you need some help with those calcs there. Anyway, so let's look at a problem here. So again, suppose you want to perform a test that the null hypothesis that the mean is 5, and the alternative hypothesis that it's not equal to 5 at the 1% significance level. Now, a random sample of size 37 from the population population of interest yields a mean from the sample of 4.81 and a standard deviation from that same sample of 0.365. Now let's just assume that our conditions are for the test, so let's not test those. We'll just assume, we're going to tell you that those haven't been met. We're good. So why is the sample giving us some evidence for the alternative hypothesis? Well, yeah, if you kind of look at the sample mean 4.81, we're saying that was the mean of our sample. Well, yeah, it kind of contradicts a little bit, not a ton, but it does have some evidence to say, well, maybe that's not right. Okay, so we do have some evidence. Now, is it convincing? That's another question in itself, but it has some evidence for that again. So we're going to suggest that maybe we should look into it. All right, so now we're going to do our tests here. Okay, we're going to take a look at our standardized test statistic. Okay, our t-value, again, we take our sample mean minus the population mean, take our standard deviation divided by the square root of our sample size, we get a t-value of negative 3.17. And since our sample size is 37, that gives us degrees of freedom of 36. So now remember, there's two parts to this. There's the lower and the above, because we're doing the two-tailed, the not equal to, okay, as opposed to just being strictly less than or strictly greater than. All right, so we go to our handy-dandy table. We're looking in there, okay, because 30, it goes from 30 to 40, 36 isn't on there. We go to the next smallest one, 30, and we're looking for negative 3.17. Just use the positive, right, because of the symmetry. We're looking, we're in between 0.0025 and 0.001. So we got kind of an interval, which is kind of the downfall of using that. All right, so again, as we've kind of find that, we have to again use the fact that we have two tails, so we have to double it, right? Because it's got two parts to it, so we got to double it. So we're actually going to say, we're in between 0.002 and 0.005. We got to multiply those by 2 because we're doing not equal to. So two-tailed is what we have there. All right. Now, again, so you kind of see the limitations of using Table B now. So the calculator is the solution to that. And again, what you're going to do when you're carrying those out, you're going to hit second, vars, and then go down to number 6, which is the TCDF, okay? And then if you're going above, you're looking here, you can do the t-score that you have here, and then of course go up to 1,000, so it's way up there, and then you put your degrees of freedom in. And the table should actually ask you to put that in there, so you'll be able to put those values in. It gives you those t-scores then, is what you have there. Now again, if you do this in our example that we just had, we had a negative 3.17. So what you do is you put it'll ask you for the lower end, negative 1,000. So that's because that's way down there. So that'll cover everything up to 3.17. And then again, our degrees of freedom, we had, remember, a sample size of 37. So the degrees of freedom are 36. Because it's not equal to, it's two-tailed, we're going to multiply our answer by 2. So then we get our t-score that way. And so it's a lot more precise. Instead of getting an interval, you can get an actual value. And that's kind of nice. Okay, so let's put it all together here, and let's kind of see what we do for a one sample t-test for the population mean that we're looking for. So again, in the state plan, do conclude, we've seen that before, we're going to state the hypothesis and the significance level and any parameters that we use, similar to what we did before. Identify the appropriate inference. So again, make sure we mention it's going to be a one sample t-test, and then check our conditions there. Right, and if the conditions are met, then we're going to do our calculations. Okay, we're going to find that t-score, and then do that. And then we're going to make a conclusion. Again, remember, if that score is less than the null hypothesis, we are going to reject it. If it's greater than that the significance level, then we are going to fail to reject. All right, and again, just a reminder of why that's the case. The random condition ensures that the difference between the sample mean and population mean is a good estimate between those. Again, the normal large sample thing where we're looking at that kind of lets us use that t-statistics with that n-1 degrees of freedom. And again, that 10% condition allows us to use our familiar formula for standard deviation, replacing the sample standard deviation for the population, and so that allows us to do that part. So those are the important parts. That's why we check that, and that's why we can do that. And just remember, for the one sample t-test, remember, if it's greater than, remember, we're looking for the area in that tail. If it's less than, we're looking for the area of that tail. And then, of course, if it's not equal to, we have two parts to it, so you have to double that. You're going to usually get the score for this and then double it because it is symmetric, and you want to make sure that you're looking at that. Okay, so here we go. Let's look at this. The level of dissolved oxygen, DO, in a stream, river, or river is an important indicator of the water's ability to support aquatic life. Researcher measures the DO level at 15 randomly chosen locations along a stream. Now, here are the results in milligrams per liter. Okay, so we got that. All right, so we got 15 spots. Okay, an average dissolved oxygen level below 5 puts aquatic life at risk. Do the data provide convincing evidence at the 5% significance level that the aquatic life in the stream is at risk? And then give our conclusion. We're going to do that, and then we're going to talk about whether we could make a type 1 or type 2 error. Now, again, that's going to be dependent on whether we reject or fail to reject the null hypothesis, and then we'll kind of talk about what potentially could be the problem there. Okay? All right, so let's get into that state. Okay, so we want to test to see if the the population mean is 5, and our alternative is that we think it's less than. We're going to see if we're at risk here. And again, mu is the true mean dissolved oxygen level of the stream. And so we're going to do this at the 5% significance level is what we're going to do. So that's the state part. The plan, we're going to do a one sample t-test for mu, the population mean. So we do the random. Yeah, we said we did 15 randomly locations, 10%. I'm quite certain that there are infinitely many places along the stream that you could check, so 15 is obviously less than that. All right, so now let's check out our normal large sample idea. So if we were to plot this, whether you use a dot plot, maybe a histogram is better here because you're using numbers in between 2, 3, 4, 5, so you can kind of bulk those together. Probably shows a little bit better here. With our graph, and again, make sure you make a sketch of that. It's great if you use the calculator, but again, just make a sketch. To demonstrate that, yeah, we don't see any outliers, or there doesn't seem to be any skewness here. It looks roughly symmetric, so that allows us to continue on. All right, the do part. All right, so our mean, if you put those in the old calc, find the mean and standard deviation. That's right, remember, that's the one variable in stat mode. Put those in there. You can get those numbers rather quickly. Our t-score, again, we can do by taking that 4.771 minus 5, divided by the standard deviation, divide that by square root of our sample size, which was 15. We get a t-score of negative 0.94. And then the degrees of freedom, we had 15, so that one less is 14. And we should be able to see that on our table when we do that. I think we have a little thing here. Okay, so using the table, we're going to be between 0.15 and 0.20. Now, the nice part is that if we go ahead and use